The day after retirement, it's not that you don't need an income, it's that you don't have a paycheck. How do you take your assets and recreate the paycheck for you to pay your bills, cover your expenses, and live the life that you envision in retirement? We'll talk today with Chris McIntire about 6 retirement drawdown strategies that you need to consider for a more confident lifestyle and protection into and throughout retirement. Chris McIntire is Northwestern Ohio's resource for that common sense approach to planning. He is president and founder of McIntire Retirement Services. And Chris, we always appreciate your time, the guidance and insight that you provide on sound strategies for a more confident retirement here on Your Game Plan for Retirement.
Hey, good morning. Good to be with you here today. Looking forward to, the discussion on today. I was, reading the notes here. It's like, this will be a good show for everybody.
Yeah, well, we always appreciate the time and the insight. To start the program off, Chris, kind of a quote that began the article that we are going to cite and reference, but a plan is only as good as the assumptions and the variables that it is based on. You really need to examine the 6 critical variables that affect your retirement drawdown and retirement income producing strategies.
Yeah, and a number of different ways to create and talk about these income topics here for sure. And as I was reading through my notes here, Peter, it's got the life expectancy for a male is 84 years old and a female is 86.6, and that's according to the Social Security Administration. So to kind of put things in context for folks, my dad's 91, my mom's 87, my father-in-law's 95. So they have beat all these statistics already.
Well, you've got longevity on your side, Chris, so you need to plan for a long retirement. And I think that everybody probably needs to err on the side of planning too long rather than planning too short, right?
Yeah, without a question. And, our good friend David Gaylor, always said, look, do your estate planning like you're going to die tomorrow and your investment planning like you're going to live forever. And, as we talk with our clients and prospective clients on a day-to-day basis, when they come in and they're in their early 60s, they're not really worried about leaving money to their children, So you certainly go through phases of your retirement where, hey, we just spent 40 years doing our hard work. We're going to do our traveling and we're going to do some spending here in the first, 5 to 10 years of our retirement. And then we figure, as age happens, you slow down. My parents don't go to Texas anymore. They stay grounded. Robin's dad stays grounded now, obviously at 95. You're only going to be so active anyway. So we call that and I hate to steal cliches that we all hear, but you have go-go years, slow-go years, and then kind of the no-go years where you're not very active, go to church, out to eat, that type of thing.
Yep. And we've got to consider the life cycle that we will likely go through. But Chris, we've got to account for all of those as we plan for the longevity that we will have in retirement. And another good friend of ours who's been on the program numerous times, Tom Hegna, talks about longevity as being the risk multiplier. So as we talk about these 6 retirement drawdown strategies, we will certainly include and incorporate some of the factors, some of the risks, the issues, the opportunities, and the discussion of longevity. But ladies and gentlemen, if you have not specifically mapped out your retirement drawdown strategy or your retirement income generation strategy, Chris McIntire really has a niche there. He helps his clients to create the plan for sound confidence in the foundation for your retirement lifestyle. And if you would like to get your plan put together, or if you have not discussed, reviewed, and specifically addressed the drawdown strategy as well as the issues that can affect it, then pick up the phone and give a call, because Chris does offer the opportunity, not only just a quick phone call conversation answering questions, but an individual review, evaluation, strategy session, and mapping out your specific game plan for retirement. And if you'd like to take advantage, just call 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194. 800-868-1194. Or you can go online, McIntireRetirementServices.com. McIntireRetirementServices.com. So setting the stage before we get into the specific drawdown strategies and issues, Chris, is there are factors that you need to consider basically about your status, right? Is your marital status, your savings status, the status of the types of accounts that you have, and what you think living expenses will be in retirement. This is kind of just to set the stage for planning and mapping out the drawdown strategies that you will enact.
Correct. Yeah. If we're going to build something, we need to start at the foundation. And part of that foundation is knowing what are my expenses on a month to month, the basic expenses, obviously, the living expenses you have. What's the income coming in? Are we going to be pulling money from a 401k or a Roth IRA, for example? Because taxation is part of this. It's one of the first key components is, how can we be as tax efficient as possible? And, with the folks listening to the radio show today, probably 95% of their money is in a taxable IRA or a 401k, 403b type account. So they have to take taxes into consideration, because that also impacts some your taxable brackets and also can dictate how much you're paying for your Medicare premiums as well. So, trying to avoid a couple of these, let's call them potholes, for example. We're not talking about anything cataclysmic here, but you want to understand, the tax ramifications and what bucket do you draw this money out of, the savings bucket, the income bucket, the higher risk bucket that you have. So, we had three phases of money in retirement: go, slow go, no go. We got three buckets that we talk about for investments, safe, moderate for your income, and then higher risk to keep pace with inflation for years down the road. So you'll hear this common theme, on the threes there, if you will.
And we'll talk more about projecting out what those expenses look like into retirement, the assumptions that you need to make, because again, the plan is only as good as the assumptions that it relies on. You've got to carefully examine those assumptions. But again, Chris, laying the foundation, and even before the foundation, what kind of ground are you building the foundation on? Does it perk? Is it sand? Is it granite? We've got to set that foundation in place to understand how to build the structure on top of it. And so your marital status is going to certainly play into how you're planning for retirement, the savings that you do have, the kind of accounts, and then what you think living expenses will be in retirement. Chris, the day before retirement, the day after retirement, and then looking out 3 to 5 years down the road, how do we begin to even fathom or imagine what those changes in expenses are going to look like, and have that kind of foundation for then how to build these strategies? What are some of the exercises that people should go through to really examine the expenses? Because I have to imagine that folks that would listen to this program, clients of McIntire Retirement Services, generally are those that have maybe had a more comfortable kind of income during their working career. They're lucky, they're hardworking, they're blessed, whatever you want to call it, to not have to pinch every penny or stretch every dollar or clip every coupon they can find. So how do we maybe make that transition to a time where now we've got a finite amount of money and we are concerned with making it last?
Yeah, without a doubt there, Peter. And that's a, good summary there. Well done. Is, how do you, dictate what inflation is going to be down the road, because you don't know what the rate of inflation is going to be. For a very long time, we didn't deal with a whole lot of inflation. We were almost in a deflationary cycle there for a while from the housing crisis in 2008 is what I'm referencing, and interest rates were very low. It was cheap to get money and whatnot. People didn't really worry about paying their houses off because the interest rate was so low. Okay. Now we're in an entirely different environment there where, I just got fuel in our pickup truck. It's a diesel one, and it was $4 a gallon. I have a boat. It's $5.50 a gallon for gas at a lot of places because you use different fuel for boats. And again, there's only so many marinas, so they got you. But the price of food is ridiculous. My wife and I go out to eat dinner. If we don't have a cocktail, it's, and I don't have one anyway, but if she has one, it's $100 for two pieces of salmon and a salad. It's ridiculous. So, I would say, over the course of that 10 years, you have to figure on how you're going to get your income to double, basically. or at least go up by 75% so that you can maintain the cost of living, because inflation is the equivalent of a stealth tax. You don't see it only when you shell money out at the gas station or the car dealership, whatever you're referring to, or home repairs right now are ridiculous.
Yeah, and probably very different than certainly very different than 5 or 10 years ago, and that's going to continue into the future. But Chris, I feel like it's trying to find your way through a shopping mall to get to just the one store you want to get to. You want to know where you're at first, right? You look at the map and you are here. I feel like a lot of people with their spending and their budget may not even know where they're currently at, or not accurately in any sense. So is there a way that you help people or encourage people to even look at just that baseline? What are expenses right now here today? Where are we now?
Yeah, and there's a lot of nice software tools available that you can, track your expenses, apps on your telephone where every time you go to the grocery store, you enter that dollar amount and it runs a nice running total for you. Some folks are very good at building their own spreadsheets for the engineers out there, and they can factor in the cost of living adjustment, and they'll shade those columns in a different color and everything even. So
Yep.
just making a joke there, you engineers. Yeah, God
Yep.
bless you.
All right. Well, getting a handle on that certainly going to help us with guidelines, right? Is that we could outspend, overspend, and enjoy our retirement to the fullest in the first 5 to 10 years, but then what are the next 5 to 10 to 20 years going to look like? Or we might be so conservative and so worried that we don't spend money that we could afford to. That's what mapping that out is really going to help us to achieve and accomplish. Know that we're aiming for the right target. And then, Chris, we begin the process of enacting our retirement drawdown strategies. And as you had previewed earlier, number one is let's plan to minimize taxes. This is going to be a big part, really, of the majority of baby boomers' retirement drawdown is going to involve taxation of dollars that have yet to be taxed. So we need to plan on how to do this efficiently.
Yes, we certainly do. And, we are very active in many of our clients' tax returns. And, sometimes we even pay to have their tax returns done as part of our investment program so that we know, what they're pulling out, what the tax rate on that's going to be, how much money they have left that they can pull out to remain in the same tax bracket. We've talked about the 12% tax bracket many times here on the show, and we would want people to max that 12% tax bracket out in general, because the next bracket's 22%, so why not pull money out of an IRA account at 12 versus 22%, and you can reposition that into something else if you didn't need the dollars and whatnot. So today's interest rate environment has made other alternatives very interesting. So as we pull dollars out, convert to Roth IRAs where it's going to be tax free. We can, you can throw it in a CD or a fixed annuity at 5% all day long these days. And have that money growing tax free for you, and build, a CD ladder and annuity ladder for things that you're going to need down the road to combat that inflation piece, I guess, is a good example of why you would want to do that. Or if you knew you had home repairs up and coming, that you're setting some of those dollars aside. And a good example here, buddy, I just had a client said, hey, you think we're going to buy a car next year, and said, how are we going to pay for it? And, most of the money's in an IRA account. And I said, we've done pretty well here. You've had a nice recovery from 2022, 2022 when everything was down. 2023, 2024 been pretty rewarding. I'm like, let's slide some money off to the side here if you're going to buy that car, because we'll skim some money after the market has come up. That way, if it dips, by the time you want to buy that car, we've already set aside and made a budget for those dollars. So, that might not be watching it every single month, but that's, again, another strategy as to looking at the performance of the portfolio. Also, when you spend some additional dollars, like if you want to go to, if you bought Nvidia stock, for example, this year, and you want to go to Europe, where are you going to get the money? Well, Nvidia may have paid for that already.
Yep,
It,
yep. There are certainly some high risers in the market, but not across the board, Chris. And most cases, we want that well diversified portfolio. So there's some balance there with some that are seeing astronomical gains and then some that may not have seen such, but are chugging along at a steady as we go rate. And that's part of the withdrawal strategy, is figuring all of that out, where to pull from at what time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, in what time do you take Social Security benefits as well, right? We're talking about income planning and combating inflation. And, for those of you that can wait longer, your Social Security benefit increases every year, even if you're not working, by delaying when you take it. So from 65 to 67, you basically are going to get almost 10% more, depending on what year you were born. Obviously, I'm using some approximates here. And then if you wait from 67 to 68, it increases by 8%, whether or not you get a cost of living adjustment. So, that's a pretty good rate of return. Not everybody can afford to wait on the timing of their Social Security benefits, but it is certainly a very important decision as to, when do you take those benefits, because you're basically locking in, same thing with pension payouts. That was on the list I got here as well, Peter, is, what type of survivor benefit do you leave if you have a spouse, and even if you aren't married, if you're, widowed, divorced, or never been married, when you have a pension payout, do you just take the single life and not risk getting hit by a bus next week? Or do you take a life payment that's guaranteed for 10 years or even 20 years? So if you died in year number 5, those payments would continue for another 5 years in that example.
Yep. Well, we've got to understand the implications. Claim early, claim at full retirement age, claim late. Chris, I know that you spend a lot of time with clients in that education process before making the decision. What is a lifelong permanent decision, as you indicate, repercussions even after our own lifetime with Social Security, but the decision on when and how to time our benefits can make the difference in several hundreds of thousands of dollars over the course of our lifetime. There's kind of two schools of thought. The debate rages: claim it as soon as you can, wait all the way until 70. But it can make a significant difference over average life expectancy, even especially for a married couple. And the Social Security Administration office does not give proactive guidance on when to claim and collect, or what the difference in the timing would be. Rather, they just take the order on the day that you show up. So it really does make a difference to have that education ahead of time, because this is money that either is going to come from Social Security, is going to come from your personal assets and be drawn from your retirement accounts, or simply just is not there at all. And of the three, I'm certain I know which one I would prefer.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we work with so many individualized cases, it's hard to give blanket advice here. But I just met with a nice couple, and, he's getting ready to retire and his wife is younger. So she's still going to continue to work. And in his situation, he'll probably take it at 60, or I'm sorry, he will not take it at 62 because his wife is still working. So he can delay up until like 65, and then most likely his wife will be 62 when he's 65. He'll take benefits, go on to Medicare, and she will most likely take her benefits at that time at 62 as well, to lessen the amount of money they have to pull out of their portfolio. And that's a pretty common situation, right? What, both spouses aren't always the same age, so we run into a lot of different scenarios where helping people understand the timing of the benefits, and again, more importantly, the survivor benefits should someone pass away, ahead of time, ahead of that life expectancy factor, we could say, right? If somebody died at age 70 versus 82, that certainly wasn't planned into the process there, you would say, Peter.
Right. You can you can wait and delay those benefits to maximize them, but you've got to promise to make it to at least a certain age, and we don't know when that time is going to be. So just certainly look at and evaluate all of the options, map that out, integrate it as part of your retirement drawdown strategy on your personal assets, ladies and gentlemen. And again, the time just to look at Social Security, well worth the investment. When 30 minutes to an hour of crunching numbers and looking at scenarios can make the difference in several hundreds of thousands of dollars over the course of retirement, take the time to do that. Give Chris McIntire Retirement Services a call at 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194. Chris, the next on the list here doesn't apply to everyone, although in our area here in Northwestern Ohio, maybe lucky enough to have more that this does apply to than in other areas of the country, because there are still some companies and workers at certain companies that are entitled to pensions. So certainly if you are, this is a big one. You need to choose the right pension payout option carefully.
Yeah, without a doubt. And many of those pensions, once you choose the benefit, is it stays fixed. Not everybody's got a cost of living adjustment. You might find that in some of the governmental entities. Teachers sometimes get a cost of living adjustment because in Ohio, many of them do not get Social Security benefits, so they get a cost of living adjustment on their pension. And depending on where you live or where you work, like the Whirlpool Corporation we have here not too far from us, many of those retirees get a pension, because they have worked there for so long, but they froze that pension, I think, back in the late 90s. So they have not been contributing into it, but some people are at least eligible for some portion of it. And then the new hires are not eligible for it at all. So, the responsibility for saving more of your retirement income is certainly on the shoulders of the employee versus the employer. And you never know, the pendulum swings back and forth, and as they look for more and more skilled workers, but you'll see better pensions in utility companies, kind of these quasi-government entities, than you're going to see in the private sector by any means. So selecting that right benefit that gets you the maximum, okay? Because if you're married and you take 100% survivor income for your spouse, that gets you the least amount of money. If you said, okay, well, if I pass away, my wife's not going to need 100% of what I was getting. She might be able to live off of 50% of what we were spending. So you get a higher pension benefit. If you pass away, she would only get 50%. Those are examples. So, and I would say, be very careful with that, guys, because your wives are looking at that very carefully, right? One's an act of love, one's an act of kindness.
Yeah. Well, consider carefully the implications. Certainly, absolutely. Within a married couple, both individuals are impacted by this decision for life and even after. So, consider that carefully. Chris, next, and this is a big one. I think right now a lot of people are grappling with this concept, but balance guaranteed income and long-term growth. This goes back to that bucket strategy concept idea that we've talked about very often. We need both, but how much in each? We need to strike a proper balance between guaranteed income and then long-term growth.
Yeah, we sure do. And, right here at the desk is, a book written by Dave Gaylor there called Income Allocation. And it talks about structuring some contractual guaranteed income to free up investment money in your portfolio. So the example would be is, in today's interest rate environment, we have some annuities that give incredible payouts right now. And what I mean by that is the average listener here has probably heard of the 4% rule, where I can draw out 4% of my investment portfolio. So on $1 million, I can draw out $40,000 a year, adjust for inflation over my lifetime, and I should be okay, right? There's no contractual guarantee on the investment side. Okay. Well, if you can get an annuity that's got a 7% payout, okay, well, what do you need? $600,000 to get $42,000 a year, not $1 million. So you just freed up $400,000 that you don't need to create that income on. So, yeah. I know some folks aren't the biggest proponents of the annuity side of things, but it's typically people who have no idea how they work. They just, unfortunately for us, Google these days is the bathroom wall of the internet, and you only see bad things on there.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept though, Chris, how you stated that. You are guaranteeing income to free up more growth money. And with the higher interest rates, the higher cash flow and payout rates that are available today, this is something that is feasible and possible that we can potentially free up a whole lot more investment capital by looking at that guaranteed income.
Yeah, and it's, when I talk to people about this concept, Peter, it's like all of a sudden it's like a light bulb goes off. They're like, I get it. Yep, I get it. I'm carving off a piece of my nest egg. I'm getting more income out of that than I would in a 4% 4% rule investment portfolio. And again, $1 million at 4% is $40,000 of income. If you can get an annuity with a 7% payout, you need 600,000 and you're getting 42,000. And you may be able to protect that money from market risk, right? Where in an investment portfolio in 2022, stocks and bonds both down 15 to 25%. So your $1 million became 800,000, and now you got to pull out, not 4%, you got to pull out 5%, So, I mean, why wouldn't you want to have some contractual guarantees, remove that money from stock market risk, free up money for maybe even longer term growth?
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense when you do it all day, every day. And, you have to have the ability to explain that. And, I guess that's what, if we have a niche in the marketplace, it's like, look, let's look at everything objectively, and nothing is perfect out there. Let's not just go at it with a blanket bias because it doesn't, fit our fee only business model where, all right, we're not going to do anything that has contractual guarantees to alleviate the number one concern of today's retirees. And with that being said, I'll take a step off my soapbox here.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, certainly worth a look if you are making the transition to planning that transition or even already in retirement. How can you get the highest cash flow out of your income generating dollars? How can you leave yourself as much discretionary money, growth money, investment capital as possible? Now is a great time to take a look at that balance. So pick up the phone, give Chris McIntire a call, 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. Chris, we talked about and addressed longevity and the need to account for inflation. So as we kind of have just a couple minutes left here in the program, two remaining retirement drawdown strategies I want to talk about is the 4% rule and simply defaulting to RMDs. Where do these fall in the context of sound retirement strategies?
Yeah, so required minimum distributions now begin at age 73, and that is, just the mandate by the Internal Revenue Service that if you're not taking money out of your IRA account, that you have to, okay? And that's all that means. And it doesn't mean many people listening to the show today are taking money out of their retirement accounts because they need it to live off of. So the RMD doesn't mean much to them. And what was the other part of the question
The
there, Peter?
4% rule. Is
Yep.
that a sound retirement drawdown strategy now?
Well, if we want to, I'll talk both sides of it here just to prove my objectiveness is, well, I can walk across the street right now and put money in a bank CD and probably get 5% for 1 year, and so, all right, so that's better than the 4% rule in an investment portfolio. The problem is, where's that CD rate going to be a year from now if they're talking about cutting interest rates? Okay, is it going to be 3% a year from now when it renewals, or 3.5%? The investment portfolio, using stocks, bonds, real estate, different types of things to create enough dividends and interest to spin off of that 4% rule, is certainly something that we do for clients. We create income portfolios, no question about it. Okay. But for most of our clients, we want something that's also got a nice contractual guarantee in case something on the investment portfolio isn't working right. They cut interest rates, the market comes down significantly. I mean, you want to hedge risk. So that's why you have that bucket approach that we had talked about previously. If it's an investment strategy, even in dividend stocks, that's a higher risk bucket than an index annuity with a guaranteed lifetime payout, that doesn't have any financial risk. So, you want to use these things in the right combination. And, unfortunately, so many, I'll use the term advisors very loosely, they take the same, square peg and put it in whatever hole so that it fits no matter what. with us being the independent, the fiduciary side of things is we use things where they need to work, right? Because that's the win-win situation for a long-term client relationship, and you satisfy the clients, they tell their friends, and you build a successful business practice this way versus looking for more transactions. It's the different business models that are out there for folks to choose from on what fits for them. I have folks that are incredibly risk tolerant, so they don't really worry too much about safe money. Again, and then the opposite way, we have folks that are don't want any more risk whatsoever in their lives for whatever reasons, health concerns, so on and so forth. So again, Peter, I guess if I'm harping on one thing here, it's that, look, there isn't one size that fits all.
Yeah. Well, that's why you need the experience of a qualified professional, ladies and gentlemen, to help you design your specific retirement drawdown strategy. And now is a great time, maybe a better time than at least any time in recent history, the last 10, 20 years. This is a good time to look at formulating your retirement plans, ladies and gentlemen. So pick up the phone, give a call to Chris McIntire at McIntire Retirement Services, 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. Chris, we always appreciate the details that you go into, the insight, the guidance, and education that you provide.
Hey, my pleasure. Every once in a while, I jump on top of my soapbox. So we throw some emotion in there because we're passionate about what we do, buddy.
Well, we always appreciate that passion and the work that you do for so many to have that more stable, confident financial future into and throughout retirement, throughout the Northwestern Ohio area. And ladies and gentlemen, so many have taken advantage, so many more need to get that sound game plan for retirement in place. Give Chris McIntire a call, 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194.
Tune into Chris McIntire's full radio program and visit McIntireRetirementServices.com for many additional valuable resources, including other great episodes of Game Plan for Retirement with Chris McIntire. Be sure to subscribe.
The content of this radio show is provided for informational purposes only and is not a solicitation or recommendation of any investment strategy. You are encouraged to seek investment, tax, or legal advice from an independent professional advisor. Any investments and/or investment strategies mentioned involve risk, including the possible loss of principal. Advisory services offered through Brookstone Capital Management, a registered investment advisor.
Fiduciary duty extends solely to investment advisory advice and does not extend to other activities such as insurance or broker-dealer services. Advisory clients are charged a quarterly fee for assets under management, while insurance products pay a commission, which may result in a conflict of interest regarding compensation.